Welcome to the first episode of the Nerdy Playbooks World of Averant. In this series, we will start off with a podcast that goes over the beginnings of our long-term story. So far, we are essentially 4 campaigns in. We have done Campaign 1, Campaign 2, and currently we're doing Campaign 1.5 and Campaign 3, where 1.5 is actually taking place starting off between 1 and 2, and eventually looking itself up to 3, going through a huge span of years. But unfortunately, with Campaign 1 being when we started all this and still new to streaming, the campaign stream itself was subpar, to say the least. And it was a great campaign. We base many things off of it, and it is a solid ground for many of the details that lie in within, leaving people confused, including some of the players that were not with us at the beginning, of who is this person? What event? You have to explain this event to me. Where did this happen? Who is this? Etc. So, that leads us into this podcast. Starting off with episode 1, the beginning. In these podcasts that we'll do, we will specifically talk about specific settings, people, locations. This one will be how it all began. The story begins at the beginning of the multiverse, 9 realms. But the first one started off as the first realm called Averant. Unknown why, the Lord of Dragons, the King of all gods, Bahamut, decided to leave his previous realm and started off new, started off fresh, creating one singular realm itself, the Averant realm. Making sure that life flourished and it at least turned out the way that he wanted, he dictated its rule for its first hundreds of years. Leading itself on to its first age, he made sure animals were created, life was created. He also brought along his twin daughters, Armoros and Cacopial. These two being almost identical, but opposite sides of the same coin. Cacopial, fun, party girl. Naturally blessed with magic of healing. Armoros, represented as a darker sort, but not personality-wise. Think of her as the shy, cute goth girl. Given the same powers, but instead of it just healing, she was gifted life, but also death. These powers are not blessed on her or Cacopial, specifically from her father, but they were born with these by random. This magic only started them off as witches, but eventually they became the gods that ruled, taking their place from their father. In time, Bahamut became bored, finding it both boring and stressful to be a singular god who's controlling a whole realm. And he decided to create more gods. But with more gods, did not want to plague one realm, so he created a total of 9. And he decided to put in charge of them his 2 daughters, believing that they are old enough now to at least have an understanding and a responsibility of rulership. He blessed Cacopial as the god of the stars and the moon, known with her spirit that she could dominate both. Her powers specifically allowed her to create, to heal. Armoros he dictated as life and death, She was not the god of death by any means. For all intents and purposes, it was the exact opposite. She was able to create races, but she also had the ability to wipe them away. But she had no heart to do so. She wanted to bring life in this world. She was the druid of sorts that had the ability to kill, but she would not do it. Creating the 9 realms, Bahamut willed the rulership to them. And in doing so, their first act, as far as Averant was concerned, was to create others. There was already nameless races, but they decided to create 2 ruling races, each one creating a specific kind that they deemed similar to themselves. They decided to create the humans and the elves. At this point, the humans and the elves did not have a sense of direction. It was already told from day one that the elves were supposed to be blessed with magical gifts, and humans were blessed with a certain kind of intellect, ingenuity. But this was day one. They were still in their earlier ages, and with it, they blessed them with a self-control. They didn't wish to dominate them, they wanted to let them flourish. They were still gods to these 2 races, and certainly they decided to bask in such. After hundreds of years, it was always determined that the elves and the humans did not agree. After getting their own sort of will, they always were the same as Kukulkan and Armros. 2 sides of the same coin, born the same way, but different in many ways. The elves always sided with Kukulkan and the humans with Armros. But they were raised the same. In the eyes of the 2 twin gods, there were no specific treatments given more to either one. Hundreds of years has passed. As gods, Kukulkan and Armros forever stayed at the age mid-20s. Forever always looking the same. Kukulkan with her silver platinum blonde hair, her gorgeous galaxy wings of purple and stars glowing within, a radiation of beauty. And radiation is the proper word, as she normally glistened with healing light. Armros, being shy of her own, she still gained many followers, being the sort of first cleric. Wings raven black, hints of crimson. In this world, evil is not so simple. The black hair is not the evil, the white hair is not the good. There is so long that sisters can agree on something until a disagreement can be had. And with these 2, a disagreement is not taken lightly. Thus, we lead ourselves into the First War. With the elves and the humans flourishing after thousands of years, it was eventually determined that they will always hate each other. They will always go to war. And without Armros and Kukulkan noticing it, they were almost a reflection of themselves. Kukulkan and Armros at the same time were always disagreeing. But what to do? Where to go? What path should they push forward for their races? Almost as an extension of himself, the elves and the humans always fought. Kukulkan and Armros tried to figure out an answer. What to do? How much do they influence? Both races knew about them. There were temples, palaces to their honor. But it was not enough. Amros wanted to let them flourish. If they go to war, they go to war. That is their way. We should not interfere. Cacolpio thought otherwise. She believed that this world that was given to them by their father should be a paradise. Perfection must be had. And if these two races won't learn to be one and peaceful with each other, then we will reset. We will go back to the beginning and we will try anew. We cannot die, and we can do this as many times as we want. A decision that was not taken lightly. This would essentially start back from square one, erasing the thousands of years that they spent doing what they did. After so many days, weeks, months, even close to a year, they could not come to an agreement. Cacolpio wanted the reset, but it was not her power. Almost as if her father knew that Armros would refuse to reset, it was still Armros' power, given to somebody who chooses not to use it. Armros refused to use her powers to reset everyone, believing that it's not just the elves and the humans' faults for this, but the influence that Armros and Cacolpio had. Armros believed that them physically being there was an improper influence. After so many years, they decide that a more balanced influence would happen. They agreed to hold off as peace talks happened between the humans and elves. They pushed in and agreed that the war will pause. And lucky it did. Armros and Cacolpio decided they needed help. Much like their father before, it was apparent that ruling these realms was a tough task. So, they put their powers together to create the next 5 elder gods. But at this time, they were quite young, of course. Gods that would help them. The first gods that would dictate specific aspects of life. The way the winds blew, the way the sun rose, the way the waters were, the seasons itself. They believed that such minuscule mechanics was too much for Cacolpio and Amros, so they created the 5 first gods. And these gods created a sort of council for them, a sort of way to allow it to not just be just 2 sisters bickering, but a council of 5 with a sort of wisdom that allowed to be a unbiased source. That way, any decision that was made between the elves and the humans would be made amongst 7 instead of 2, allowing there to be never a tie of a choice. These gods, all together, not by power, but influence over the realm, could easily overpower Cacolpio and Armros. But not so much that it ever created a war, it's just what they've been granted. Many years have passed. At this point, the Averant realm has much flourished. Elves and humans have come together. But a new problem arose. How can elves and humans be one if they can never be together? One of the things that always came up as a problem is it was impossible for elves and humans to breed together. Almost as if Bahamut made it so. Or maybe it was Cacolpio, maybe it was Amros. But the elves and humans could never. And at this point, after so many years, Cacolpio and Armros were lonely. They dictated their duties to others, and there's just so long of immortality that you cannot share. And they wanted a child. They pleaded to their father, swore that give us a child, allow us to bear. But they are gods, they cannot. Muhammad would not listen, saying to create another would be blasphemy. If you're able to figure out yourselves, by all means. But creating another god cannot happen. Not of both of your bloods. It's one thing to create gods as an extension of your magic. But to pour both of your magic together to create one, we cannot do. If you can figure something out, by all means. But it gave them the idea. They never thought about putting their magics together. They never thought about actually creating a sort of brother-son in the process. Could we create just another one of us? Could we almost pull an extension of our power out? Instead of creating a god, we created a child. And that's what they did. The firstborn, the original, the alpha, the only one of his kind, but genderless, named Malik. The firstborn, the first half-elf, giving the traits of both a human and an elf, the first of its kind, a noble warrior that was considered the first paladin of this realm. Learning quick and gaining many adaptable abilities, he was not a god, but proficient. Swordplay, magic. Everything was simple. And life once again flourished. But the problem was continued. Malik was alone. Malik was very alone. Malik was the only one. It wasn't long after his birth, 20, 30, 40 years, that Malik decided to take it upon himself to ask his parents to make more. Malik, unfortunately, due to the way he was made, he could not make more of himself. He could not fall in love. He could not bring new life into this world on his own. He did not have the power. He swore he would do anything to ask them to make more. Either give him the ability to make more himself or make more of him. Give him a family. Give him his own race. At this point, he was one of his own. He was favored amongst many. Elves loved him, humans loved him, but still, there was a gap, a sense of fear. Elves and humans were still not 100% together. This did create a bridge, but it also created a sort of a barrier as well. Many people grew to hate Malik because there's only one of him, whether it was jealousy or something else. After many years, Malik swore he would do anything, but they refused. After many years, Malik learned ways to communicate. He learned the secrets of his grandfather, learned a way to communicate to Bahamut. And thus he did. Bahamut was not surprised of his existence. Bahamut saw all and sees all. Pleading to his grandfather the first time he sees him as he walks upon this giant dragon's hand. Telling his grandfather all the things that has happened. Tells him, one of these days, your daughters will retaliate. One of these days, they will want more. Give me more, and I will do whatever you ask. I will even fight them for you. Bahamut intrigued, knowing that one day his daughters would eventually want more. And he would refuse. Knowing that creating more, they found loopholes in everything. Creating Malik, creating more gods. And Bahamut was not exactly afraid, but was concerned. He wasn't afraid of his own life, but he was afraid that he would have to harm them to protect others. So, he granted a gift to his grandson, an extension of his own power. Muhammad himself has a unique gift. Just like his extension that he gave to his daughters, all of it was granted from him, even though he didn't choose it. The powers all originate from him: birth, death, life, powers of magic. They're all his. He could easily reset 9 realms, but unfortunately at a cost. If he did, everyone inside would be erased too, including his daughters. And as a father, he cannot do that. So, he decided to do 2 birds, 1 stone: give his grandson a gift and prevent a future heartache. Muhammad split his powers into 9, telling his grandson about his abilities, telling him that I can give you my gifts. They will not do anything to me. They are merely extension of myself. But these gifts I cannot give to you. I can give you one, a catalyst of sorts. You will not get these 9 gifts, but you will be able to control what happens with these 9 gifts when someone receives them. As he grants him with a blade, a sword that unique of its own kind. A blade itself that, with it, allows Malik to break the chains that bind, allows him to be free. But Muhammad warned him, when you use this blade, they will retaliate. This will get to that day. But with this blade, nothing can be stopped. No immortal can resist this blade. But I recommend that you do not use it. Think of it as a bargaining chip, a intimidation. As he casts the 9 lights to different parts of the realms, telling him this blade itself will let you know where they are. The magic itself will choose its wielders. It is your job to find them, recruit them to your cause. Malik took no time wasted. He immediately hunted for the others, seeing who the blades chose, and recruited his 9 knights to his cause, telling them all about what the world is really like, who the rulers are, and who he is. They took no time to bow. And with blades, they were given supernatural powers beyond belief. As they created the first order of the 9 blades, the first blades of Bahamut. The only thing that Malik asked was that when it comes to a time, if it comes to a time, we must use these blades to subdue my mothers. Obviously, hesitation was had, but the warriors knew the cost. They were told about how they could reset the realm. They were told about all the things that happened and what could happen. Malik knew that both Cacopial and Armros were on the edge. They were still bickering about what could happen, what should happen to the mortals, to the elves, to the humans. Taking account at this time, those are the only mortal races. Tieflings, orcs. Nothing was created yet. With this at hand, Malik waited. Knew that one day would be the one thing that would start it off. Malik was a warrior, But he did not want to hurt his own parents. But he knew it would happen. But he swore he would not be the one that starts a war. But it did happen. Not too many years later, the original argument began between Armros and Cocopiel. They are at war again. What would we do? Armros still leading to let the humans and elves fight. This is the way they grow. They will learn one day. They will learn. Trust me, my sisters, they'll learn. Armros always decided on peace, not war. Cocopiel, the exact opposite, disagreeing. They have been at war too many times. They will never learn. It doesn't matter how smart, how evolved they are. They'll never learn. We've wasted enough thousands of years. Cocopiel wanted to reset. But again, she can't do it herself. She does need her sister. Her sister has the ability. Life and death belong to Armros. The skies, the winds, elements himself belong to Cocopiel. But this was that final moment. Cocopiel cannot take it anymore. War was started. But this time, war was not just simply between the elves and the humans. It was now between gods. Everything was sided. Even the 5 gods have picked sides. Armros and her humans. Cocopiel and her elves. With the first official war of the gods. Malik now, not taking sides, but is ready with his paladins. As an ultimate war has begun. This war lasted hundreds of years. But to them, this was merely days. They've lived thousands. But unfortunately, Armros did not want to kill her own sister. She was always holding back punches, always making sure the humans would subdue, not kill, and that was their downfall. Cocopiel won at the end. But Armros would still not listen, swore that she would not reset. Till finally, Bahamut re-intervened, disgusted by what he saw, disgusted by what has transpired. Decided to do both. Disappointed in his daughters, disappointed in what happened. Malik still being his knight, letting him know what has transpired and what will transpire. Using his power, Bahamut decided to reset the world, but instead of the way that Cocopiel wanted, it merely wiped away memories. And decided to grant more gods in this world to take over, deciding that Cocopiel and Armros are not worthy. Subduing them, but not eliminating them, until we start off with the new First Age. A world that does not remember Cocopiel and Armros. A world that does not know of times past. Bahamut now stepping in and pushing things forward. Now allowing things to happen, allowing Malik to make decisions for the first 50 years. Races were now born. Devils, gods, halflings, gnomes, orcs, and breeding in between. Unknown why, Malik had to be put down, put to sleep. But once again, it was still early in the age. Many do not know about this. Many don't even know where he came from. But he left an impression, being the reason why races have been created, why races can now create other races, why love can now flourish. In this new first age, as the world knows, as a new written word has been created, none know about the time before. None know about the world before, and they have no reason to ask. Except for those curious few, those ones that have dreams, swore that this is not the real reality. Nothing has changed, but obviously there was something before. This new age was not restarted back to caveman. People still had ingenuity. People still had their intelligence. Taken back only a few thousand years, they just lost the memories of Cacopial Armros. But they still remembered the elder gods and the new gods that were created. Now, with the new gods, Bahamut was content with returning once again, allowing his new order to flourish. With 5 elder gods and a total of 20 new gods, the powers just split further down the line, allowing to make sure that if one decided to screw with the others, no problem could be had, could be dealt with. Now the elder gods were in charge. And Bahamut believed that they would do a proper job at it. And they did. Just like Kukulpil and Armros, many people knew of these elder gods. But the difference is the elder gods and new gods did not just openly show themselves and walk around. They lived anonymously, leaving clues of their existence, but allowed humans, elves, tieflings, the old races to flourish without their influence, only allowing those who believed in them to get guidance and help. Maybe even a little bit extra power for the patronage. Cacopial and Armros were not gone, but they hid. With only a little bit of strength left, Cacopial was pissed. She swore revenge against her father for taking away what she wanted, and she swore revenge on her sister. And that's what she got. Using the rest of the power she got, allowing a line of people hidden from the eyes of Bahamut to know about her, regaining her strength, she easily was able to find Armros and subdue her. Using what magic she had, she put Armros into a deep sleep, forcing her to never to be in her way again. Cacopial cannot kill her sister, but for a future plan to come through, she could make sure that her sister could not get in the way. But there were unseen circumstances to this event. Armros was a free spirit. She was always happy. And the last hundreds of years of this battle has only brought darkness into her heart. She didn't know what to do with it. Her best friend, her sister, had betrayed her. And in this sleep, that's all she could think of. How her favorite person in this world has hated her and tried to kill her, and has done everything but just that, leaving her in an endless nightmare of this dream. In a body that has powers beyond comprehension. In this nightmare, in a body locked in a sarcophagus that Cacopial decided to hide from humanity, from the world, and made sure that she would never be remembered again, Armros slept, forever locked in a nightmare, with unforeseen consequences. Her powers could not be controlled while she was asleep, and in this nightmare her powers ran out of control. In doing so, she accidentally created a defender. A creature that swore to eventually find Cacopial that would protect Amros. This creature was nothing but a small thing, an extension of the darkness of Amros. But it had a deep effect on the realm. Many people would not know this creature for some time, and without the memory of Amros, people would not understand. And in the future, the first word would talk about this creature. The first word would talk about the ravaging infection that no one knows where it started. It doesn't know how it began, what it wants. No one would know about the plague. That is it for today's episode. Hope you all enjoyed. This is the episode of the beginning. I'll be doing another episode today. Stay tuned. This is a 2-part premiere. Next episode we have is about the plague. So, if you are watching this live, stay tuned. We'll be up with another episode shortly.